explainer. Look, today we're jumping right into the gritty reality of life-saving field medicine in grid-down scenarios. I am absolutely thrilled you're here because, honestly, the skills we're unpacking today aren't just theoretical. They are the critical, immediate interventions you're going to need in a rugged wilderness setting when everything goes wrong and professional help is entirely unavailable. I want you to picture this. You're stranded somewhere remote. The cell towers are completely down, or maybe you're just miles and miles off the grid. So what actually happens when 911 fails? Well, the stark reality is you are the help. Until advanced care arrives, you become the literal critical link between a severe accident and survival. And our sources today lay out exactly how you can step into that role with total confidence. To get you prepared, we're building a complete hierarchy of survival playbook today. We'll be running through grid-down triage protocol, bleeding and trauma management, critical care and shock, surviving harsh environmental injuries, and essential field burn care. Oh, and before we really get into the weeds, take a quick second to hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment below so we can keep building this digital survival community together. All right, Section 1, Grid-Down Triage Protocol, Prioritizing Immediate Life Threats. The whole idea here boils down to your order of operations. In a truly chaotic environment, you have got to aggressively prioritize life-threatening bleeding over literally everything else. That's triage protocol in a nutshell. It's basically just a system of categorizing patients by severity. So once you've tackled that initial massive bleeding, your job immediately shifts to constantly reevaluating their status, just to catch any subtle changes before they become fatal. Moving right along to Section 2, Bleeding and Trauma Management. Tactical gear, and stopping the clock. When you're face-to-face with trauma, you really have a clear, decisive, binary logic to follow. Check it out. If you are dealing with massive limb bleeding, step 1 is immediately applying direct pressure and securing a tourniquet. But, hey, what if you just can't use a tourniquet? Your protocol then is to aggressively pack the wound with medical gauze for those arterial bleeds and just hold heavy, direct pressure. You are literally physically filling the void to stop the bleed. Once that bleeding is finally stopped, you've got to address the structural damage. For fractures, you must quickly immobilize those injuries by securing the joints. You can use purpose-built SAM splints, or if you're improvising, just use some sturdy sticks or even tape the injured limb to an adjacent body part. Once it's secure, definitely get some cold packs on there to manage the inevitable swelling. But what if the impact was severe enough to compromise the spine? If you even suspect a spinal injury, your primary job instantly becomes providing manual stabilization to the head and neck. You've got to minimize movement at all costs. In fact, you should only ever use a log roll maneuver if it is strictly necessary for their survival, like if you desperately need to clear their airway to keep them breathing. Which brings us to Section 3, Critical Care and Shock, Sustaining the Physiological System. Airway management isn't just a quick one-and-done check. It is a super methodical, ongoing process. Step 1, you always check for physical airway obstructions. Step 2, you use the head tilt chin lift maneuver to really open that airway up. And finally, to protect that airway from fluids, carefully place unconscious patients in a recovery position. But here's the thing. Even if the bleeding is stopped and the airway is clear, the body can still just crash on you. You need to constantly scan your patient for shock recognition indicators. Is their skin turning pale? Does it feel clammy to the touch? Are they suddenly rocking a rapid, urgent pulse? If so, you've got a system in severe distress that requires immediate intervention. To combat that shock, assuming there's no spinal injury, of course, you want to raise their legs to redirect blood flow right back to those vital organs. Next, you absolutely must maintain their body heat. Wrap the patient in one of those crinkling, highly reflective metallic emergency blankets. It is such a simple tool, but it's an absolute lifesaver in a wilderness setting. Okay, Section 4, Surviving Harsh Environmental Injuries, Battling the Elements in the Wilderness. I really want you to notice the extreme contrast in how we treat these two conditions. For heat stroke, which you'll spot by hot, dry skin and mental confusion, you treat by rapid cooling in the shade with damp cloths. But hypothermia, that demands an entirely different approach. You treat that with warm rehydration, thick insulating ground barriers to stop the cold earth from stealing their body heat, and core heat packs applied directly to the body. Now, if you're just dealing with basic dehydration and not full-blown heat stroke, your intervention is a lot simpler but equally essential. Treat dehydration aggressively, using a mix of water and electrolytes to restore their system. And finally, Section 5, Essential Field Burn Care,
Protecting damaged tissue.
Burns are incredibly common out there, and they are intensely painful. Here is your strict 3-step protocol. First, cool the burn with water for 10 to 20 minutes. Not ice. Ice actually causes more tissue damage. Second, cover the burn loosely with a sterile dressing. And third, and I cannot stress this enough, never pop blisters. Doing that just opens the door to massive infection. Man, we have covered a tremendous amount of ground today. These foundational medical skills, from packing arterial bleeds to managing shock with metallic blankets, are so vital for survival until advanced care can be reached. Which leaves us with a pretty provocative final question to chew on. Looking at the rugged reality of a grid-down scenario, could you save a life today?
Knowledge really is the ultimate survival tool, and preparing together is what makes the difference. So please, take a moment right now to like this explainer, hit that subscribe button, and leave a comment down below letting me know exactly what life-saving gear you plan to carry in your own emergency kit. Thank you so much for learning with me today, and stay safe out there.